Have you seen the special episode of The Sandman that Netflix surprised us with? You have? Good. Isn't it awesome? Yes, it is. Anyway, we got a chance to speak to one of its directors, Louise Hooper, who was responsible for the episode Calliope. Check it out.
Morpheus. You're writing him a letter.
Something like that.
He must be punished.
First of all, fantastic episode. It was one of those things where you're so glad that something you love has been done justice to that you find yourself crying a little because it's so beautiful. So one of the things that I guess, always admired about Gaiman is that he's never been precious about his work, in that his adaptations, be it American Gods or Good Omens or even Sandman, has always been kind of suited to serve the medium, the story, and even the time that it's being told in. And I cannot express how much I love what you did with Calliope. And I was wondering if you could talk to me about some of those changes that you made with her character, because it fits.
It's a lovely question, thank you. So, well, there's lots of things to unpick. First of all, I'm delighted that you enjoyed it. So it was very important to me. I mean, as a director and as a female director, I'm hardwired to make sure a woman is represented with strength and intelligence. So I'm not interested in ever showing somebody being submissive or pleading or begging or crying. So you can have emotions of frustration or emotions of complete devastation, but you keep a moral strength. And that is absolutely right. In all my work, it's just very important to me. Melisande, a beautiful, fantastic actress, very nuanced. And she and I were completely on the same page. And she has such, dignity and that kind of moral, strong compass. So, she's absolutely appalled, as we are, of what has happened to her and disgusted by it. But, she says, I don't want him to be too punished. I don't want, at the end of the day, she is the better person. And I feel that that message is incredibly strong. So, for example, I mean, the rape scene in the comics, you see more nudity and you see more aspects, but we felt in a contemporary version of this, particularly in the wake of Me Too and contemporary relevance, that it's not appropriate or necessary to see the act happen. The act is horrific and we know that. So it was very important to me, but that wasn't in the script. If it had been, I would have questioned it. But actually, luckily and happily, everyone was on the same page with that decision. And similarly, although she had that little silk dress on, it was modest. It was. I didn't want anything salacious or. So that's my most important thing. And the way that I shot Melisande with. And then Richard Maddock with Arthur is you make sure they both have the same frame on in the shots.
Right.
The eye line, because the director's tricks, as we all know. So if you can make someone small, have the camera here, and they're looking up and they look dejected. No, we're not doing that. We're having strength and we're having and big close-ups. So she's got such strong eyes. I mean, she's such a powerful actress. So that's the thing.
I mean, she's a child of the gods, so.
Exactly. So let's make sure she stays that way. So that was the real spine for me in terms of taking the story and making sure it feels justified for today.
And also, just starting with her hair, because 70% of Greeks have dark hair. So
yes,
Calliope would likely be a brunette or have brown hair, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
But going back to the implied violence, right? Because we don't see it. And yet it doesn't take away from its impact at all, which is, of course, a very different approach from what we see in a lot of TV these days, like Game of Thrones or Westworld. And sure, they employ it in a very different manner. But can you talk to me about how that decision came about as to what to show and what not to?
Well, talking with Alan Heinberg, who, the incredible showrunner, who's incredibly collaborative, and I absolutely adore him. So basically, we discussed it and we felt that you see him looking up into the bedroom, you hear the sound, you can make that connection. We have the cut back to Derek Jacobi and him saying that he used force. We know what we're talking about. He's then having the pressure from his agent. So, you do it by inference. And so he says, yes, I know what to do. We know what he's going to do. And then the camera comes down onto the computer where he's got that blank page. And that idea of that's his greed and his ambition and his frailty in terms of his ego, and that's what he wants to feed. So you see that as the kind of like the kind of evil, really. And then you hear his steps going upstairs, and then when he comes back and he's right, he's just got that scratch, which is horrible.
The blood on the cheek. Yeah,
it's like it's subtle, but it says everything. So I feel like, and then I mean, I just would never show a sex scene like that. And I don't even particularly want to show joyful sex scenes either. I just feel like in life, it's about what's the story, what's the power dynamic, what's the emotion, what's the essence of the scene. The actual physical act itself is, can be imagined.
Oh, and oftentimes a visual representation of it just kind of leaves you a little jaded. And the implication is a lot more haunting, I think. That blood on the cheek was horrifying.
Yeah.
So, because your imagination's a terrible place. And so, reading the comics, it was always apparent that Erasmus Fry was a horrible human being. And yet, there are moments with Derek Jacobi that had me sympathizing with him. Was that just because I love Derek Jacobi?
I mean, look, two things. I mean, one, probably yes, because he's a fabulous legacy. On the other hand, I think what Neil does so well, and what we try to show as well, is that all humans are flawed, and it's just, I mean, I think Calliope says it, about Maddox. He's just a man, he's just a human. And actually, we all have this fallibility. And so it's really horrible to see. But that thing of wanting to have success and to have ambition, lots of people are culpable of that. And I think that's also a really interesting theme of it. It's not just about the male, female, but it's also anybody who wants something and will push other people down to get it. So, he's not a good character. He's not a good person, but it's someone we can all relate to. And that's why you probably empathize with him, because we can all see a chink of that.
Yeah. It's the same with Rick Maddox, actually. I mean, as a creative person, as a writer, you often sit back and you think, oh, great, what would I do if I was stuck in that situation? I think that's the biggest question that this episode poses, because how far would you go? Yeah. And there's that one line that Erasmus says, oh, she isn't human. You don't have to worry about her. Yeah. And it's just, right? Yeah. There is this moment with Richard Maddox when he's talking about making his movie and being a champion of women and celebrating diversity. And it feels in that moment like he genuinely believes it. And I think what was great about your episode is that it perfectly highlights how complicated we are as human beings, that we can hold all of these competing ideas and beliefs at the same time. It was absolutely brilliant. And it happens throughout the episode with different characters. And I was wondering if you can talk to me about that.
Yeah, no, I think that's fascinating. You picked up on that. I love that. I mean, absolutely. It's exactly that. We are all complicit. I mean, we're all full of hypocrisy and contradictions, and we can do some, great kind act for a neighbor, but then not something else for, other people. And it's just this terrible trickiness of being a human with all those frailties. But that's exactly it. He does believe that, and he feels like he's proud and he's telling her. But obviously she's just thinking, what an idiot. He's missing the entire point that he's kept this woman prisoner. So for me, I'm allergic to cliche. So in terms of performance and behavior, I want to make sure that everything is as authentic and as nuanced and as believable as possible. And that means not having stereotypes, good, bad, don't really exist in life. And they are much more fractured and much more fascinating than that in terms of the layers. So, and that's, the job of a director working with brilliant actors, which, I had many of them, was to find those nuances so that it feels, and that's what brings an audience in more, because it feels believable. So, yeah.
One of the things about, I guess, these standalone stories, which we see in volume 3 of Sandman, is that Dream plays almost a supporting role in them. And so I was wondering, after, I guess, people have seen 10 episodes of the Sandman, they're watching episode 11, and Dream kind of comes in towards the end of these episodes. And could you talk to me about bringing in Tom Sturridge at the point that you did in order to kind of create this impact with the audience? Because of course, obviously they're watching all of this. And I guess if you're a newcomer to the season, you've never read the comics, you'll be like, wait a minute, where's the main character at?
Yeah. No, I mean, what was exciting for me to do Calliope is that all the other episodes, and I did obviously episode 10, is that you'll go into different storylines, and Dream is obviously there as your spine. And with this, it was like a very quiet, smaller piece of drama where you're in very limited locations, very limited cast. It's very small. Wonderful as a director, because then everything has cause and effect, and you don't break away from the story. I love the idea that when she has the paper and Maddox puts it into the fire and it goes up, so you know he's coming. And then in that scene, which I find very beautiful, Sam Heesman, DOP, did a beautiful job. So we're in the bedroom and you've got these two figures standing on either side of the window, and they start to come closer. And I tried, not to use too many edits, to use very simple camera moves, just let the people and the script speak, and just make that very simple so it has more power. They had a great chemistry, Melisante and Tom. Again, incredibly brilliant, instinctive, beautiful actors. So, and I loved also when he let her through the door at the end, and we were thinking, what does she do? Does she give him a kiss? Does she put her hand? Every decision. And actually, she just rested her head against his, which I thought was so beautiful. So it's those kind of things all the time. It's like, having that freedom to discuss with the actors what would be the most authentic performance here, and trying it out, and then finding something that we all sit happily with.
Since it's an adaptation, I was curious as to whether or not there were any moments from the comic that were particularly sacred to you. When you were reading through it, were you like, okay, I've got to keep this bit in, but I can lose this bit?
Well, I suppose for me, I mean, on the writing part, of course, Alan and the writers were doing that. For me, on the visual part, I would take, all the different frames, have them across my office, look at things and, where can we do a homage to this, and where can we do one for that? And one of the ones was that when the girl goes upstairs to go and release Calliope, and Calliope's gone and the book is on the floor, you've got this incredible light shot and it's a top shot. And so we were very, nerdy about making sure the door's a bit to the left, a bit to the right. It's really important to make, if you're going to do it properly. So, and there's a real pleasure in doing that, actually. So for me, it was visually, and I did that more probably in episode 10 as well. Where can we take the comic and actually make it look, express that on screen as faithfully as we can?
Gaiman's comics, or Sandman in particular, seems to have this unique ability of transcending time with its messages, right? I just spoke to Hisco about A Dream of a Thousand Cats, and I was talking about how relevant, amazingly relevant, that story still remains in our political culture today. Even with Calliope, you mentioned the Me Too movement, but also with regards to the price of genius. So what does it mean, right? And I was wondering what other takeaways you had from reading the comic book and also directing this episode.
I mean, for me, it was exactly that. It's sort of what is the price of ambition? And again, I mean, I don't really always like to have that male-female split. For me, we're all humans and we're all, both good and bad. So for me, it was very much about make someone think about what it is to repress someone else's voice, what it is to repress someone else's ambition, what it is not to have consent, what it is not to have respect. So it's all those things that people, are very much, especially in today's culture, in their own world and in their own ego. And actually it's about consequence. What does my action do to somebody else? And that you can't do something if it stands on others. And of course, in life, everything we do, what we wear, what we eat, there are ramifications and consequences. I could go on, but the point is, it's basically saying what you do has an impact on others, and be mindful of that.
Yeah. And also, I guess, this added factor of what might be a good thing for one person could be absolutely terrible for another.
Yeah. No, but I mean, and of course with Calliope, with that, the Me Too thing is just, it's make sure every woman and has a voice and is respected, and it's not about treading on someone else to get your own gain. So
and then the added thing of when you're famous and popular, somehow everyone else becomes complicit in your success as well, because they want to be close to fame and popularity, which is that party scene was absolutely great.
Oh, that was fun. I really loved it. And we, obviously we did it in one shot. And so we had to do quite a lot of rehearsals to make sure that happens. But yeah, that was a really fun scene.
Cool. I have one last question before I have to wrap. But very quickly, Louise, just do you have a favorite Sandman story?
Well, I think now I've done Calliope and Dream, I think Orpheus would be wonderful to work on.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yep. I'm just waiting for that season 2 announcement.
Yeah, well,
Also, Louise, if you have any pull in Netflix, can you tell them that if you have Dave McKean designing your end credits, don't let people skip after 5 seconds.
Oh, I know.
Keep it going.
I know.
Keep it going.
Yeah, I know. They're beautiful. I know, but it does. It clicks in, so you have to. But anyway, that's just the modern.
I keep watching the whole thing. You got it. Yeah, absolutely. Louise, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
A wonderful interview. Thank you very much indeed. Real pleasure to meet you.
No, thank you. And fingers crossed, and hoping you direct many more episodes of these.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Fingers crossed. Lovely to meet you. Bye.
Are you giving me nightmares now? Tell me!
That was Louise Hooper. She was responsible for directing the segment called Calliope in episode 11 of The Sandman. What did you think? Sound off in the comments below. Don't forget to check out our other interviews right here on YouTube. Tell your friends, tell your family. You know what to do.